Hello, teachers who are new to Jeffco Public Schools. The purpose of this webinar is to go over the information that was shared at Teacher Induction on August 6th and 7th. So the slides that I'm going to share have hyperlinked information in them, and you can find these slides right here in the Schoology group for first year teacher induction and under the resources area. It's right here up at the top. If I switch over to those slides, you will also see a link to a tiny URL. So if you typed that into a browser on your computer, you'll be able to have access to these slides and the hyperlinks in them. So here's our agenda for this webinar. We're first going to start with the typical classroom technology you can expect in your Jeffco classroom. So fortunately, your Jeffco classroom will most likely have something much improved beyond the two computers that you see here. However, it is really impossible for us to say exactly what kind of technology you will encounter in your Jeffco classrooms because each school is given a per pupil amount of technology funding and is able to spend that money however they would like. I can pretty much guarantee that you will have a desktop or a laptop available to you as a teacher. So some teachers have schools that have decided to invest in laptops, so those can go home with teachers. Other schools have elected to put desktops in classrooms, so teachers have those machines available. Some schools will have smartboards in classrooms, some will not. And some other technology that you might run across in your classroom are Chromebooks and iPads. So some schools have invested in Chromebooks and some schools have invested in iPads. So these are supported technology hardware and devices that Jeffco makes available for schools to purchase if they elect to with their technology funds. Beyond that, other schools have invested in clickers. Document cameras are also very common in Jeffco classrooms. And many teachers do also choose to bring in their own computers. So that if you decide to bring in your own personal device for use in the classroom, just know that you're welcome to do so, but only Jeffco purchased devices operate on what we call the SHRMP network, which is that SNHRE. The closest word we were able to distinguish from that is the word shrimp, so that's often called the SHRMP network. And that's an internal Jeffco device only network. The Jeffco Guest Network is available for students and staff, so if you bring in your personal computer, you may definitely use it. However, you will be on the same wireless network as student devices. If you're teaching in a high school, those students tend to max out the bandwidth of the Guest Network pretty quickly. Also, if you're using a Jeffco device and something breaks or something goes wrong, you can just file a service desk ticket for hardware or software issues. If you have your own personal device, obviously you can't fill out a service desk ticket for someone to fix your computer. In addition, there's typically at every school a cart or two of laptops that go from classroom to classroom, and most schools have at least one computer lab, as you see pictured in the bottom right. So some kind of lab that you can take your students to. As for the software and other resources Jeffco provides for teachers, we have three main tools, really two, excuse me. The first is Google Apps. So all teachers in Jeffco have a Jeffco Google Apps account, as do all of our students. And that Jeffco Google Apps account includes Google Calendar, Google Docs, Google Drive, Google Spreadsheets, a Gmail account, Google Presentations, and Google Sheets and Forms. It also includes a YouTube account for teachers. So our students don't have a YouTube account as part of their Google account, but teachers do. So if you want to create and share your own videos, you have a YouTube channel for that. And then every student and teacher, even all of our parents, everyone has a Jeffco Schoology account. And in a few minutes, we'll preview some of the things you can do with Google and with Schoology. As far as software, again, that is a site decision. So you will notice that Microsoft Office is not listed among those software programs. Many elementary schools do not choose to buy Microsoft Office and instead go with the Google Suite, which is free. Some high schools and middle schools will purchase Microsoft Office for the entire school, and many others will just load it in specific labs or on specific laptop carts for the school. So I talked about Microsoft Office, other programs you might run across. If you're in elementary school, many use Lexia Reading. Acuity is an online testing platform that we use to assess our students, and that is a web-based software program, so it's accessible from Chromebooks and from laptops and from desktops. Nothing needs to be installed there. And then the Adobe Digital School Collection is pictured along the bottom of the screen. This includes Photoshop, It includes Adobe Premiere Elements and some other software titles in the Adobe suite that is typically only found at the high school level, and again, maybe in just a select lab for students to use. In Jeffco, we have a filter. It's called iBoss, so you'll hear it often referred to if iBoss is blocking this. And part of iBoss is a service called Clean Video, which gives our students some access to YouTube. So if a student were to type into their browser www.youtube.com, instead of going to YouTube, it will redirect them to a service called Clean Video, which allows them to search for videos but strips out videos that have been flagged as inappropriate, and it filters out comments and related videos. So it's a very nice redirect that we have built in place so students can still access videos from YouTube. However, it's frustrating for teachers who are trying to get to the real YouTube so that they can share videos with their students or find them and actually manage content that they maybe have created. So to get to the real YouTube or to get to sites that are soft blocked, you as a teacher are allowed to bypass the iBoss filter. And when you go to a site that is blocked, you'll typically get this message. You can see I was trying to go to redbox.com and this message comes up. So if I click the login button, I'll be prompted to enter my username and password, which will allow me to bypass the iBoss window as a teacher. You never want to share that information with your students. They should not be bypassing the iBoss window. So if you as a teacher want to get to YouTube, you first need to go to a site like Redbox that is blocked and override it, or you just need to bypass iBoss from the very beginning and then go to YouTube so that you don't get stuck in the Clean Video redirect. Let me show you how to do that. So from Employee Connections, there is a logins page, and these list many of the tools that we use in Jeffco. And if you go about a third of the way down, you'll see the iBoss web filter. And if you select this, it will take you to the page to log in with your employee credentials, your username and password that you use to log into your email, into ESS, and pretty much every system in Jeffco. And then once you have iBoss overridden, you'll be able to go to youtube.com and log in as normal. If you get to a website that you really like to use in your classroom that you don't think needs to be blocked, there is right on the page where iBoss blocks sites a link to the internet filtering web page. And if you click that link, it will take you to this website here where there is an option to request a website for review. So if you want to use a site and you're not sure why it's blocked, you can fill out this form and someone will evaluate the website to see if it can be added to our non-filtered list. Because students are not able to bypass the iBoss filter, and teachers often don't want to bypass that individually for each student. So there is a request website for review option too if you find a site that you're just not sure why in the world it would be filtered and you want to use it in your classroom. So I talked about the different ways for overriding iBoss. You can do that from Employee Connections. Again, a common one that many teachers use is simply to go to redbox.com and use the login option there. Once you log in, you'll get a window that says Internet Access Window. It says who you are and how many times that you have the filter bypass. We'll just kind of tick away here. You want to leave this window open. If you close it, it essentially turns the filter back on. So most teachers will just minimize it, go to YouTube, go to the sites that they need to use that are soft blocked, and then when they're finished, they just close the tab. This internet access window will only allow you to get to soft block sites, meaning those sites that IT thinks that teachers would definitely need to get to, but for bandwidth reasons, we don't want to have just open for all students, or for content reasons, that's not an appropriate K-12 site. So soft block sites you'll be able to get to. If you were ever trying to get to a site and it didn't let you bypass it, it'll basically just not provide this internet access window. And that way you'll know that a site has been hard blocked and you won't be able to get to it at all, even with your teacher credentials. So there are a lot of different tools in Jeffco, and so I'm going to go through some strategies for how to keep track of everything and what to do when you get stuck. So Employee Connections is really considered the home base for Jeffco employees. Typically, most schools set this as the homepage for teachers when they log into a computer. And from Employee Connections, you'll be able to find most of the resources that you're looking for. And let me exit right out of here. I'll go back to Employee Connections and just again point out this logins page. So if you wanted something, some information about Jeffco Google Apps, this logins page really actually takes you to a support site first. So if I click on Jeffco Google Apps, you'll see I'm taken to a support page that has a login for me to use to actually log into my Google account from school, but it also has some extensive information. So if I select Google Drive and Docs from the menu on the left, I'm taken to some print resources and some how-to videos. So how to create a Google Doc, how to share, how to upload existing files. So there's all kinds of extensive resources here for everything from Google Drive and Docs to Google Sites, Google Calendar, YouTube, Gmail, and so on. So these pages off Employee Connections are a great way for you to get some additional information, and the Schoology page is no different. And it takes me to a resource page where I have how-to videos and additional resources. So these are some great places to start if you are unsure of how to use a tool. So if you get stuck, if you can't log in, here's where you can go for help and support. Number one is the Jeffco Help Desk. So the Jeffco Service Desk can be reached at 303-982-2200. They're wonderful about walking you through any problems you might have on the phone. So if you're not able to log in, they can typically, unlock your account, reset your password, all of that good stuff. You can also file a service ticket, or a trouble ticket is often what we'll call it, just by emailing service_desk@jeffco.k12.co.us. If you log into ESS on the homepage, you'll also see an option to file a trouble ticket to the service desk. So if you have something that's non-urgent, and you can just email them that way. If you need urgent help, if you're completely locked out of systems, just pick up the phone and call them. Your teacher librarian is also an excellent in-house resource. So the teacher librarians receive tech training directly from EdTech Services, and so you can look to them as your technology expert for your building. And our schools also have site techs. A high school typically has a full-time site tech, and elementaries often have a part-time site tech that is there on certain days. And your site tech will often handle the reimaging, the loading of software, many of those technical issues that where your computer needs touched. Your site tech will help you. Your teacher librarian is often the one you'll go to first for those usage issues. How do I use Google Docs? How do I share a Google Doc? How do I set up my classroom in Schoology? And if your teacher librarian is unable to answer your questions, they have access to all of the experts and they can point you in the right direction and put you in contact with those you need to speak with. We also have some training resources and classes for you. So from Employee Connections, if you were to select Employee Resources, and one of those options under Employee Resources is Professional Development Training, it takes you to the PD website. If you select this link from the slides that are located in your group's resources, you can see it takes you to a catalog of the courses that are offered for professional learning in Jeffco. So if I filter mine for educational technology and sort for all courses, you'll see that these are all of the classes that are available to me. So I can go through here, and if I am interested in a class like Google Crash Course, I just choose the Learn More button, and I get additional information. What's nice about these courses is you can see you get credit hours for completing them. So when you go to relicense, you will need to turn in 90 clock hours, and taking these self-paced classes is a great way to quickly accumulate those hours. On the PD website, you'll find two varieties of classes. We have fully online or face-to-face classes, and we have self-paced online classes or facilitated. Self-paced just means you can take it and finish it at your own leisure. Usually their courses are open an entire semester or an entire year, and you just need to finish up before the course ends. A facilitated class usually runs 6 to 8 weeks, sometimes a little bit shorter than that, and you'll go through the topics 1 week at a time with a facilitator and with a group of others. So it's a little bit more of a we'll all go through this together. You have flexibility given to you within the week to complete the activities, but we will all kind of go through at a facilitated pace for the course. Two courses I really want to highlight for you if you're new to Jeffco and haven't used Google much is I really recommend that you take the Google Crash Course. It will introduce you to Google and give you some great ideas for how to use the core tools in your classroom. And then all teachers will need to build a Google site as a classroom presence for their classroom. And Google Site step by step walks you through that process. Again, because you're taking the course online, you will get credit hours for all of your work. And your completed project for that class is simply your completed website, which you'll need to have anyway, so you might as well get the clock hours for that process. Along the bottom of the screen, you'll see some of the other classes that are popping up. So if you're already very familiar with Google, maybe you opt for the More Google for Educators class, or maybe you are interested in designing and creating your own videos, so you would like to go into the YouTube class. Maybe you're interested in flipping your classroom and want to learn a little bit more about that. And all of these courses you see listed, along with many more, are again on that PD website. At this point in our training, when we were back at August 6th and 7th, we took a moment to access a scavenger hunt, which really helped lead you through all of the items and all of the goodies on Employee Connections. So this is a great time to pause the video and go into the slides that are in your resource area and click on this quiz and complete this very, very short quiz. It will walk you through some of the gems that are in Employee Connections that will really be great resources for you. You can also just type tinyurl.com/Jeffco quiz. And if you type that into your browser, you'll be redirected to this Google form, and it tells you exactly where to go, what to do, and you select your answer right there. So take a couple of minutes and complete the activities on the New Teacher Induction Scavenger Hunt. Now that you've completed the scavenger hunt, let's talk about some of the core classroom tools that Jeffco offers. This part will be pretty high level. I'll go through it very quickly because I'm not sure what your existing level of expertise is with either of these tools. But this is designed to show you some of the power and potential that each of these tools offers. And then you'll be given resources for additional learning for those that want to pursue a little bit more knowledge for Google Apps and Schoology. Let's start with Google. So Google is a cloud-based storage and creation suite. So you can think of part of Google, the Google Drive part, it's kind of a flash drive on the cloud. So you are given 30 gigabytes to store any kind of file that you want. So you can put Microsoft Word files on there, you can put PowerPoint files on there, movie files. It's basically a place for you to store your files so that you don't have to tote a flash drive around all the time connected to your keychain. In addition to simply storing things, Google also has a creation suite, and it allows you to create documents, presentations, spreadsheets, drawings, forms, and so on. Any of the files that you choose to make with the Google Docs creation suite don't count toward that 30 gigabyte limit. That limit only applies to other file types that are non-Google files. So essentially, if you switch over to Google for your word processing and presentation and spreadsheet creation needs, you will never ever run out of space. If you have a personal Gmail account, you already have the Google tools. So I have a personal Gmail account, and associated with that I can get to many of these Google tools. But now as a Jeffco employee, I also have a Jeffco Google account. And our extension is a little bit different, which indicates that we're a Google Apps for Education district. So you can see instead of our Jeffco accounts ending it at gmail.com, our Jeffco Google accounts end in at jeffcoschools.us. And as a result, you have to make sure to type that in or you'll end up in the wrong Google domain. So there's a couple of different ways to get into Jeffco Google. If you link in off the links provided off Employee Connections, it currently takes you to the blue login screen at the bottom where you can see that the at jeffcoschools.us information has already been typed for you. So all you'll need to put in is your username and your password, or all students need to put in is their username, which is their student ID number, and their password. If you just want to go to Google, the public kind of route, where most people will just try drive.google.com, they'll just type that into their browser, or they'll type in docs.google.com, you will need to add the at jeffcoschools.us part yourself. So for the top example, I will type in jjohnson at jeffcoschools.us, so it makes sure to send me to the Jeffco domain. If I just type in jjohnson, it will assume I'm at jjohnson@gmail.com and will not take me to the Jeffco domain. The password is the same between these two login screens, so whenever you're logging into Google, just take a quick peek to see if the at jeffcoschools.us has been added for you or for your students. If not, you just need to type that part in yourself. That redirects you into the Jeffco domain, which has some additional features that are not included in just the general Gmail area. So, those of you who are really paying attention notice that our Gmail accounts end in at jeffcoschools.us. That's great. Your email that was probably given to you very first thing right off the bat with Jeffco is an account that we refer to as OWA, or Outlook Web Access, and the extension for that account is at jeffco.k12.co.us. So you really have two email accounts, but there's no need to check both of those email accounts. So one of the first things that Jeffco teachers do is forward this Jeffco Gmail email to their Outlook account. Students will often email you through Gmail because they spend a lot of their time in Jeffco Gmail and Jeffco Google Docs. Students don't have a Jeffco K12COUS account. So students have this account. It's easier for them to find your address in the address book. So they might email you here, just have all of those messages forwarded. And this link in the presentation right here will show you how to accomplish those steps to have your Gmail forwarded so you're not checking two inboxes. Whenever you're working in Google, it's really important that you're working in Google Chrome. Most of the computers in Jeffco have two browsers. One is Internet Explorer and one is Google Chrome. And our version of Internet Explorer is not supported for most of the tasks you would need to do in that Google Creation Suite. So get really familiar with that Google Chrome icon. My students will often call it a colorful frisbee. And click the frisbee whenever you plan to go into any Google tasks. Most of our students work exclusively in Google Chrome and very rarely even open Internet Explorer at all. So if you're not familiar with Google Docs, here's some of the things that you will love about it. So Google Docs saves your work. Every time you type a keystroke into Google, it saves your work. So you will never lose anything. Even if the power goes out mid-sentence, Google will have saved your work. Google Documents also have revision history. So you can go back and see how a document has changed over time. And if students are working in groups, you'll be able to see which person contributed and how much they contributed. Google has wonderful access for our students. If students save something to a computer at school, it's on the school's network, which they will have much trouble getting access to from home. But if students work in Google and it saves for them on the cloud, they can go to their computer at home and instantly access all of the work that they started at school. Google also has instant updates. So Google Docs rolls out upgrades all of the time. And unlike when Microsoft updates from Office 2007 to Office 2010, we don't have issues with versioning. So when my students were getting new computers and they were upgrading to Office 2010, and our school still had 2007, we had some versioning problems when students would bring in work from home. But with Google, when Google updates, everybody updates because all the work really is taking place on what's known as the cloud. So there's no updating problems, there's nothing to download, there's no version issues, and it's really wonderful because students are able to co-create and collaborate with one another. So they can share documents with each other and work on them at the same time, even if they're in different locations and on different computers. This is the Google landing page. This is that Drive part of Google, which holds all of your accounts. This is really covered in depth in Google Crash Course. So every time I make a file with that red Create button, it saves it over here in my list. And anytime I upload a file, whether it's a movie file or any other kind of file that I want, here's a PDF file, it saves it again in this list for me, and I can create folders to organize this, or I can simply search for my items using the search bar across the top. Two options in Google Drive. That upload button lets me upload something I've already made. And when I'm uploading, say, a typical Microsoft Office format, like a like a Microsoft Word file or PowerPoint, Google will offer to convert that for me, again, so that it's editable now on the web, so I can collaborate with others, so I can make changes that are saved immediately. So Google will convert that for me, and then again, it won't count against my storage space. But if I want to, I can uncheck that box and leave it as a Word or PowerPoint file and not go through that conversion process. In addition to uploading things I've already made, I can create from scratch, and those are all of my options that I can use to create in Google Docs. Let's talk about some of the Docs highlights for a couple minutes here. So when students are creating items in Google Docs, they can simply share their work with you, and then you'll be able to instantly see it. And you can insert comments just like you do in Microsoft Word. But when you insert a comment in Google, it appears over in the right-hand margin, and students get an email notification that you've commented on their document. And when they come in to work on the document, if I had given some feedback here, if I wanted a student to make a change here, then they're actually able to click a button that says Resolve, or they can reply to my comment with additional feedback. Inside Google Docs, you'll also find under the Tools menu a Research tool, and when you select Research, a window appears over on the right side of the document that you're working on, and students can search Google right from here. But when they type in the word Peru, they'll get web results, they can get image results, there's all kinds of different options that they can use. What's nice is if I were on the Image tab and I selected an image and pulled it into my document, Google will automatically cite it for me. And the same thing goes with information. So if I use some information from the National Geographic Peru guide, when I hover over it, one of the options that appears is Cite, and Google will do my citation for me. Another great feature in Google Docs is revision history. So if you're on the File menu, you'll see an option that says Revision History. This really shows the development of a document over time, how frequently students are working together, is everyone contributing equally if it's a group project, and it shows their level of revisions. Let me show you an example of what this looks like. So when I go into revision history, I can see there's 3 different versions of this document. So the current version was edited on December 29th, and Jay Johnson made those edits, and what Jay Johnson did is went through and deleted all of the existing text. And so I can go back to Jay Smith's version, which was done earlier that day where nothing was deleted, and easily restore the version. So this is nice work protection for students if they accidentally have a group member come in and make some changes that they didn't like, or someone accidentally deleted it. They can just go back to an earlier revision and restore it. These color codings are nice for you as a teacher because you can see what Jay Smith contributed and what Jay Johnson contributed by clicking through the different color codes. It will show you who did what for building this document. And of course, probably the most powerful feature of Google Docs is the ability to collaborate with others. So here's an example. This teacher librarian who created this story just created a document and shared it with this class, and students then were able to go in and just keep adding. So one person started the story off here, and then every time the color changes, it just means a new student came in, and the teacher can go into the revision history to see which each person added, but it just added or just enabled a really nice collaborative assignment. This was a creative writing activity where you needed to build upon the ideas of others. So something that would be very difficult to accomplish unless we have a collaborative format where we can all type and create at the same time in one document without having to email it around. When you go to share your documents in Google Docs, and you'll see these little movie icons have appeared in the slides every now and then, and if you're following along with the slides at home, if you select these, it shows you a video that explains the topic as well. So when I go into my sharing settings in Google, I can add people specifically, and what that teacher librarian did is she had a list of all of those students in that third grade classroom and copied and pasted in their Jeffco Gmail addresses, and voila, all of them could instantly edit. You can also change the permissions levels up here, where right now this document is private and no one can see it. So this Google presentation that I'm using right now, I changed that so that it would be public, so anyone who typed in the address up here would be able to see it. So you can click that change button and you can change the settings to be whatever you like, so people on the web can just view it. If they click the link, you can even let them edit it if you want to. So the current settings on the document, the presentation document I'm using, are set to allow anybody to see it, but only I can edit it. There's all the different levels. So because we have a special Jeffco domain, you can limit things further. So I could have limited that document to anybody just in Jeffco Public Schools, meaning if you wanted to follow along with my slides, if I selected this option, then you would have to sign in with your Jeffco account to prove that you are in the Jeffco domain. And public on the web really just lets, again, anyone find it. It's searchable on the web. If I don't want my presentation to be searchable, but just want anybody who clicks the link I give them to access it, this is the level of permission that I go through. And again, Google Crash Course will walk you through different scenarios for when you would use these different sharing settings. Also linked in the slides here, I have some examples listed. So there are times when I want everybody who clicks on my link to be able to edit it. So I have a couple examples linked in here. One of those is a parent-teacher conference sign-up. So I have some slots created for parents. I want them to be able to click a link and edit it so they can type in their name. A lot of times staff agendas are set for anyone who has the link to be able to edit it, so everyone can add to the agenda if they have specific items. And then the more common level that I use as a classroom teacher is to set it to view only. So if I have a rubric, I want any kid who clicks on the link to be able to see the rubric, but I don't want them to be able to change it. So here's some just examples linked in here for you to see what might be the differences in some of those sharing levels. Google Presentation is the tool that I'm using for this webinar. So it's very much like PowerPoint, but the power comes again in that we're able to share this with others. So here's a couple of examples that other teachers have used to apply Google Presentations in their classroom. You'll often hear Google Presentations called Google Slides. So some teachers have set up an alphabet book and assigned each student a letter, and then students would write an alliterative sentence for A, B, and C. And again, if you share the presentation with everyone and give each person a slide, they can instantly create their slide all at the same time, and you're not getting into the situation that sometimes we're in with PowerPoint where students finish their slide, email it to the teacher who then has to put together all of those 30 different projects into one project. So Google lets students just build and create their own slides and we can all work together. Here's another one where this is a group project, and this is a group of 4 people assigned to cover some information about erosion, and they can all 4 work on this exact file at the same time on the same slide or different slides, so they can really truly work together, but not all just be watching one person type at a computer. Students can also create Jeopardy type games with Google presentations or slides, and so can teachers, so that if you clicked on the 100, it'll take you to the question for 100, 200, and so on. Google has a wonderful tool called Google Forms, and this allows you to quickly collect information from your students. So if you are handing out textbooks at the beginning of the school year, you can have your students fill out their information, the class period they're in, and rate their book condition. This will all come to you in the form of a nice sortable spreadsheet, and then at the end of the year you can use that to check in books. You can also survey students at the beginning of the year and quickly get information about them using Google Forms. Right down here at the bottom is how an example of what this data comes to you as. So it comes in a traditional spreadsheet. Again, you can sort by last name, first name. You could sort by your bus riders, your non-bus riders. So any kind of data you need to collect from your students think of Google Forms when you are thinking about how to make that manageable. Anything from t-shirt orders to textbooks to even information for homework questions. Google Forms is a great tool. And whenever you use a Google Form, there's an option to show a summary of responses. And so these were questions that I asked my students as part of library orientation, and I instantly get a little pie graph, and their answers come to me when I use Google Forms. So this graphic representation is also built in as a nice feature of Google Forms. Google Spreadsheets we haven't talked about yet, but it is very much like Microsoft Excel, so you can put in information. Again, the power comes in this tool is that it's collaborative. So in this example here, I assigned each student to look up some information from the CIA fact book about various countries, and then we used that information that we all built together very quickly to make some charts and graphs. Again, Google has the built-in graphing and charting tools as well, just like Excel. One last thing I want to point out before we leave Google is there is an option that you'll see in Google that says download Google Drive. This is not necessary, and in fact, we recommend you don't do this on your school computer. This is just kind of like a syncing system, kind of like Dropbox, where you could drag files into a folder on your desktop that would then appear in Google Drive. But really, all of your files can be just managed from the cloud. You don't need to download the sync tool, and it's often not very compatible with school computers. So if you do want to try it out on a home computer, but this is really not necessary. You don't need this tool to access Google Drive. If you haven't found out already, every classroom teacher in Jeffco needs to have a website. Here's a few examples that you'll see. Most cases, the teacher librarian has created a template for staff members to use so that all the websites at these schools will look similar in appearance. And so you'll want to ask for that template, and then you can have a great start and you'll be able to fill in your information and become a webmaster. So Google Sites is a very user-friendly tool. Of course, everything's user-friendly once you know how to use it, but if you need some additional help in getting started, your teacher librarian is a great resource. And then we have our Google Sites step-by-step class, which leads us into learning more about Google. All of these 3 options along the left are self-paced classes. They're free. You enroll yourself and you work through the content at your own pace. We also have Google Apps Open Labs at the 809 Quayle Street Training Center, and you can find out more about those classes again on that PD website I showed. It had the Google Apps Open Lab listed as an option, and when you click the Learn More button, it'll tell you when those open labs are going on. And then at your school, you'll have your teacher librarian and your colleagues and your site tech, who are really great resources for Google information. At this point in our training, we chose one of these activities. So linked here are some example websites, which might give you an idea of how you want to structure your classroom website. Other teachers elected to sign up for Google Crash Course. Here's some directions for how to do that. Or you might want to sign up for Google Sites. Some groups elected to just experiment with Google Docs or presentations and share it with each other just so they could see how it works, where I've shared a project with you and you could type in it at the same time. And then finally, others elected to go ahead and take the time to forward their Gmail to their Outlook account. So choose one of these 4 tasks, pause the video, go into the slides, and follow the hyperlinks to complete the activities provided. And to wrap up our exploration of the technology tools and resources available in Jeffco, we wanted to give you a very quick overview of Schoology. Schoology is Jeffco's learning management system. All that means is it's a wonderful tool that allows you to include some online and blended learning activities in your classroom. The management features in Schoology will really assist you with some of those workflow issues that come up when you're wanting kids to complete work online. So let me give you the quick scoop on Schoology. All students, staff, and parents have Schoology accounts. It has a near out-of-the-box usability for teachers. Your classes are already created. You just need to customize a few of your preferences. It is a learning management system, which means it is designed to help a lot with your workflow and collecting work and assessing students and getting formative data and summative data on your students. It has auto-graded quizzes and tests. It has an online discussion tool that's wonderful. It has drop boxes. Don't confuse that with the app Dropbox, but basically an area where students can turn in assignments. Keeps it very nicely organized for you. Timestamps it, all that good stuff. And it has some built-in media collection options as well, so it makes it much easier for you to collect some of those projects and work that students create when it's in a digital or electronic format. And it integrates wonderfully with our other core tool that we've already talked about, which is Google Docs. Sometimes teachers get confused between Schoology and Google Sites because they're both online and they both allow teachers to deliver information to students. Schoology is much more focused on learning activities. So whereas you might post a handout or put some information about a field trip on your Google site, an actual learning activity is more likely to happen in Schoology. So where we will have an online discussion, or where students will take an online quiz, or students will work through an online activity that you have designed for them. In Schoology, you have usually more than one class. If you teach 5 sections of 7th grade language arts, you'll have 5 different sections of that in Schoology, each with the appropriate kids in it. You tend to just have one Google site that serves as information for all your classes. Some teachers have 2 if they teach a couple of different things. For Schoology, users do need to log in so that they arrive in the correct course. Google Sites does not require a login, so it's much easier for communicating with parents. And then Schoology has these additional tools built in that are not available in Google Sites. And those are the tools we're going to explore briefly. So to integrate the 2 tools, you can see how one teacher at Ralston Valley chose to do that. So on her Google site that parents see and students see, she does post her homework, and she uses a Google Calendar to communicate what happened in class and what homework there is for her students. And then she also has a link in the left column on her webpage to Schoology, because many of those activities, Unit 9 review, some of those activities will actually take place in Schoology. But the calendar allows parents to see what's going on without having to log into a system. In the same Google Calendar that she has put on her website, she can also easily embed right in Schoology as well. So she's not making 2 different calendars. If you teach grades 7 through 12, Jeffco has a virtual academy, and all of its curriculum has been converted obviously into a digital format for its students. And it is also just a great resource for those of you that teach in a face-to-face classroom, just to be aware of. So if you are curious about the curriculum masters, they are in Schoology in the Jeffco Course Masters group. And all of that information at how to access this group and pull in the content is on the Schoology resource page. And so you could go into Jeffco Course Masters A through E if you wanted to define, say, the English 7th grade curriculum, and see if there's any items in that online curriculum that you want to pull into your Schoology class to use with your students. And that is for all core subjects, grades 7 through 12, and many electives. Probably the most common and popular tool that teachers use Schoology for is online discussions. You'll definitely get some different responses from students when you allow them the time to think about and post their responses digitally. Many teachers prefer using this format because it increases participation, because everybody gets to speak at the same time instead of just one person. So this is just a quick screenshot of a discussion. This isn't the kind of discussion where students had time to go home and think about their answers. This is one that took place during class, and students were typing answers in, which allowed everyone to participate in many different threads of a conversation to evolve at the same time. Just to show you a picture of this, those discussions are threaded, so it looks very much like Facebook if you're a Facebook user. So when Jennifer replies to Daniel, her reply is indented, and when the teacher replies to Daniel, his reply is indented, and when Daniel then replies to his teacher, his reply is further indented. When you go to grade a discussion in Schoology, it makes it very easy for you. There's a button that says filter by user, and it will tell you how many times each student posted, and it highlights their posts for you. So that it's very easy to quickly assess how often and to what extent each student participated in the discussion. Linked here in our slides are just a couple of examples that will show you how maybe other teachers are using Schoology. And then the second tool that many teachers often use in Schoology is the assignment tool, which is great for collecting work electronically if you really want to go paperless. The system of having students email assignments is really too cumbersome to keep track of. And even in Google Docs, which I use extensively, it becomes overwhelming when lots and lots of students are sharing files with me all at the same time. And with I'll go into my teacher view in Schoology. A nice little Dropbox is created for me. So when students go to turn in their consumer product review, all of their submissions show up right here for me, and they're timestamped, so it shows me if they turn them in on time or not. Now these submissions that I'm about to pull up are just documents that I had volunteers turn in, so they're not an actual consumer product review. But when I choose one of their assignments, it pulls up their assignment for me in a document viewer, as you see here. So I can see the document. This is a Google Doc. The student did not need to share it with me. I just get kind of a PDF type version of it. And I have assigned a rubric to this assignment. So because I assigned a rubric in Schoology, I can also grade with the rubric. And I just click through the assignment, and Schoology tabulates the points based on how I am scoring this rubric. When I'm going to go to the next student, I just choose the next arrow, and it pulls up the next student's paper. So some really nice management features for electronic work collection built right into Schoology. Nice for students too, because when all of those students submitted the assignment, they got a confirmation that their work was turned in and whether or not it was on time. I can collect a lot more than just Word and Google Docs too. I can collect really any type of file from my students in those assignment Dropboxes in Schoology. So when a student goes to turn in work in Schoology, instead of seeing a list of other students and what they've turned in, which is only available to the teacher, a student just sees a button that says Submit Assignment. When they click that button, they get a 3-option tab. So the first tab on the left is they can upload from their computer any file from their computer. Think a Microsoft Word file or any other file. If they choose that middle option to create, they can type in their text, or they can insert maybe a hyperlink to a Prezi or other project, or even a Google Doc. Or if they select the Resources tab, they can turn in work from their Google Docs accounts. And when they choose this option, it actually takes kind of a picture of their Google Doc and turns it into the Dropbox so that I can see that document even if the student has not shared it with me. One of the really popular tools in Schoology is the test and quiz tool. All of the questions except for short answer essay that you see over here on the right are auto-graded by Schoology. So you can build a test that's a mix of any of these questions, and any of the questions that are true, false, multiple choice, putting things in the right order, fill in the blank, or matching will be scored for you by Schoology, and the only questions that the teacher would need to hand score on the computer would be the short answer essay type questions. You have many different options for your tests and quizzes in Schoology. You can decide how many times students can take a test. It could be 1 time, 3 times, unlimited times, how you want it scored, by highest score, average score. Do you want the questions and the answers randomized? Do you want 1 question on a page or several? Question review, resumable, and whether or not students can view their right answers after they turn in the test. All of these are variables that teachers can customize based on the purpose for their test. When your test results come in, they come in some nice statistic forms. So for question 1, I can see that 76% of my class is getting that correct, 76.9. And for question 2, I can see 100% of my class is getting that correct. And if I want to go into, if this was a short answer type question, I would just click View Responses and we'll get the actual text from the questions. And of course, I can get all of that information in graphic format too. So overall on this test, everyone in my class is scoring either an 80 or a 90% on the test, and I have a nice graph that just shows where they're falling along that continuum. Also linked into the presentation are 2 different videos that you may choose to watch. So this one shows how Schoology, the quiz tool in particular, is being used at Allendale Elementary in their kindergarten classroom. Obviously they're not using it for quizzes, but that formative assessment data where students are able to submit some information to the teacher and the teacher gets it immediately. That is how they're using this in kindergarten at Allendale, and you can watch the video just by clicking on the word link. If you're a secondary teacher, Here's a video that shows how Schoology is being used in a Spanish classroom at Arvada High School. Just some nice ways to see what it looks like in action. So you can choose to watch one of those 2 videos if you're interested. Another tool to be aware of in Schoology, if you like to collect multimedia, if you like to have your students creating video projects or image projects, is Schoology has a media album tool, and this allows students to submit video files or picture files directly to you, and it puts it in an album where all the others in the class can see it, and then they can comment on each other's work. So this is a really nice way to collect multimedia projects for your students and then allow them to see each other's work and comment on it. Within the assignment and quiz tools in Schoology, students can also record information directly back to you. So when they go to turn in work, there's a little record option here, and students can take information that you would like them to share, and they are able to select the audio option and record themselves. They can also do that with a webcam, but most students just prefer to record their audio and submit it to you. So this is a nice tool if you want students speaking and you just don't have the class time always to have everyone go to the front of the class. You can also collect some spoken feedback from your students through this quiz or assignment tool in Schoology. So if you want to learn more about Schoology, I have linked here the how-to video site for Schoology that will show you how to pull in information from course masters, how to set up your class. And if you want to get clock hour credit for all of your time, just sign up for Schoology 101, which is a self-paced online course, and that way you'll get credit hours for your work. So if you have questions about any of the content that was presented in here, please just go to Employee Connections and go to the EdTech website and contact one of the team members on the EdTech team. There are also some great resource groups in Schoology for Google Apps, Schoology, and YouTube, and all kinds of other questions. And of course, if you're not sure at all where to begin, start with your teacher librarian and they will point you in the right direction.